Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really complex, multi-layered situation. We're looking at recent events stretching all the way from central Israel up into southern Lebanon. It's a rapidly shifting landscape where domestic security issues are crashing right into broader regional military actions and international law. So let's just dive right into the latest reports and map out exactly how these different fronts are operating all at the same time. Okay, to really grasp what's going on right now, it helps to mentally split the security landscape into two distinct but active fronts. On the one hand, you've got localized domestic incidents happening directly within Israel's borders. And on the other hand, there's this major regional military action pushing into neighboring territories. To make sense of it all, we're going to start right at the ground level. Which brings us to our first focus, the recent shooting in Kochav Yair. According to reports from June 7, 2026, a really severe, localized security event broke out near the town of Kochav Yair in central Israel. It was a shooting incident that sadly left one person dead and several others wounded. The whole thing ended pretty abruptly when the suspected attacker was confronted and killed by responding police forces. So right here we have a very stark data point, a rapid, lethal law enforcement response to an immediate local threat. Now, let's look at the domestic political reaction to that police response. The political response was immediate and incredibly direct. Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir explicitly praised the police for their lethal action. His exact words were that he wanted, quote, a dead terrorist on the ground. This specific phrasing gives us a very clear window into the definitive stance at the highest levels of Israel's domestic security apparatus. It shows exactly how they believe these kinds of local incidents should be handled. And this perfectly sets up the massive thematic shift we're tracking today. Think about it. We've just seen how a localized threat is neutralized and then politically championed on the domestic front. But at the exact same time, there's a completely different scale of operation happening externally. Contrasting that rapid, hyper-local police response with strategic, large-scale military deployments across international borders is absolutely crucial to grasping the full security posture in the region right now. Which leads us to the broader picture, the recent strikes in southern Lebanon. 12. That's the reported number of individuals killed during Israel's recently intensified strikes in southern Lebanon. When you scale up from a single domestic police incident to a full-blown international military operation, the scope of casualties inevitably shifts. And this number really underscores the severe human cost of that regional escalation. Beyond those tragic fatalities, the broader strategic takeaway here is that this regional escalation is incredibly targeted. These heavy strikes on Lebanon are pressing forward, even while military actions against Iran have reportedly been halted. It's essentially a highly compartmentalized strategy. The focus is intensely zeroed in on the northern border, while simultaneously pausing or de-escalating on other regional fronts. It's like a giant, very complex puzzle. And this brings us to the international response, specifically the UN questioning evacuation orders. Are forced evacuation orders legal? That is the exact question currently being raised by the United Nations regarding this ongoing situation. Because, as you know, whenever military operations cross borders and start impacting civilian populations, international legal frameworks instantly kick in. The UN is now actively stepping into the conversation to question the actual legal mechanisms being used on the ground. So while the physical military strikes are actively happening, the UN is heavily scrutinizing the forced evacuation directives issued by Israel and southern Lebanon. The international community is basically stepping in to figure out if these orders hold up under international law. In modern conflicts, military outcomes aren't just judged by what happens on the battlefield. They are heavily judged by their adherence to global legal standards. And that just adds an entirely new, massive layer of complexity to an already dense situation. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to reflect on this. How exactly does a single, hyper-local domestic security incident fit into this massive, legally scrutinized puzzle of regional warfare? We started today with a localized shooting in central Israel, looked at the domestic political praise, zoomed way out to targeted military strikes in Lebanon, and ended up with the UN questioning the fundamental legality of wartime evacuation orders. It's a huge spectrum. From the micro to the macro, how do local security policies and international legal frameworks intersect when a region is rapidly escalating into war? It's a lot to think about. Thanks so much for joining me today.